Good evening, Mac Performance. Welcome to our weekly live. Now, I am going to tell you that there's a bunch of construction going on outside, so there might be some loud noises going on in the background. I don't know. But welcome to our 5-part summer series. Last week we did all the stay safe in the sun, don't overheat, don't get heat stroke. Those of you who I've treated, you know who I'm talking about, you problem children, you. And tonight we're going to go into how to start running, how to safely start a new activity that is probably the easiest activity to do since it requires shoes. And that is really all it required. Well, make sure you're wearing some clothes outside. I'm just saying. So we are definitely going to jump into how to start running safely. I want to make sure that this is kind of a comprehensive talk. And yes, this is going to be dense. There's going to be a considerable amount of information in here. And if you want more details, please ask questions. Send me a private message or an email. Also, check out our blog from last week. It was also all about running and running injury prevention, because that's probably the biggest concern people have, or the biggest concern they face when they start running is they get hurt, and that's no fun. So let's discuss how you start running and being active now. So let's pop up my little screen here. And throughout this, if you have any questions, go ahead and ask. I have the comments open so I can see. I also see that we have Karen, Denise, and Brandon. Welcome to the live stream. Let's dive into this. Why is running so great? It's probably one of the most common forms of physical activity. It's easy to do, it's low cost, and you can start it right now. It literally takes no equipment. You just have to go out your front door and have the personal motivation to do it, which sometimes that personal motivation, that's the hardest part to do. Now, how do we get that motivation? Well, make a plan and stick to it. We are creatures of habit, and it takes about 6 to 8 weeks to really put in that habit, which means create some cues that you can follow. Make sure you try to run at the same time. Use the same place. Play the same music. I know for me, when I'm going to the gym, if I put on my gym playlist, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to work out. I'm ready to do what is needed. And in the get-go, you might need to use a reward-based system. Chocolate is always a good place to go. Maybe it's, hey, if I run or I fulfill my activity that I'm doing for this week, maybe I get a massage at the end of it. At least once massage opens up. And fit it into a routine. Try to keep it on a regular fit schedule. Use similar music, or if you need to mix it up, but try to create that scheme of motivation so that you do the same thing. Ultimately, it's really about getting moving. And you know what? Walking to start off with might be exactly what you need to do. Start at a brisk pace. You don't need to run. You don't need to do like the super 1980s speed walker, but you want to make sure that you're walking at a pace that's not just like sauntering through the mall. You want to be getting it. You want to get your heart rate up a little bit, and consider the surface you're walking on. You want to walk on the surface that is most similar to the surface you plan on running. That way, when you're running, your joints are already used to what the surface is. Because that's usually the biggest issue we have, is that when we are getting active, getting back into running, getting out onto the road, we walk on like maybe the sidewalk, but maybe we try to run on the road. And roads, at least in Minnesota and the Midwest, they have a camber to them, meaning there's a curve to the road. So as you're running down one side, one leg is shorter, one leg is longer than the other. And that can have some inherent issues. So if you're going to be running on that, start walking on that. And make sure you walk and run on varying sides of the road each day to help prevent some of those issues with the cambering. Now, here's some keys to success. If you are over the age of 40, if you have a BMI over 35, or you have a significant family history of heart disease, you might be going, well, what's a significant family history of heart disease? Because basically nowadays in America, everyone has a family history of heart disease. A significant family history would be if you know someone in your immediate family, so parents, siblings, grandparents that has had a heart attack prior to the age of 55, I would definitely make sure you follow up with a healthcare provider prior to starting running. One, to get a baseline health fitness so you know where you're going to be, how you've improved, what you're going to be doing, and be safe. So again, before you start doing anything, make sure you follow up with a healthcare provider, especially if you're over 40, have a BMI over 35, or have that significant family history of heart disease. The next thing you have to consider is the shoe. What's the perfect shoe? And there really isn't one for everyone. Everybody has their own thing. You're going to hear people go, you can't run unless you're wearing the 0G barefoot runners or the creepy toe shoes. Or you can't run unless you're wearing this X-class thingy. Here's the thing. You got to figure out what's right for you. When using a 0 grade shoe, so the completely flat, very thin shoe, those might be ideal for a certain group of people that don't have a high risk of ankle injuries, but have a higher risk of knee injuries. But those might not be ideal for someone with weaker or unstable ankles, but has a lower risk for knee injuries. And for those people who are going, well, I have both, kind of got to split the difference and figure out which is going to be best for you. And this can be trial and error. And this is where you can benefit from going to a trained professional in how to assess your feet to determine what shoe is going to be best, or going to an actual running store. Not a Dick's Sporting Goods, not a Nike store, but an actual runner store. They have gait analysis software there to see what happens when you run. Because when we're standing there, our feet and the shape and our gait are one thing. When we run, it's a different story. So you want to make sure you're assessed doing the thing you're going to be doing. The other thing is you got to make sure they fit right. And when we're just going into the store and trying them on, that might not be the actual size of our foot that we want to fit into the running shoe, since after we run for a bit, our feet can swell, they also can spread. So you want to make sure that you're getting a shoe that, especially when you haven't ran anything, isn't pinching, but you don't want your foot sloshing around in it, and you want about a thumbnail into the toe gap just to make sure that you have some room. For me, I find it very important for there to be enough room for my toes. A lot of shoes, especially within America, are very, very narrow. And I don't have a good way of showing this, so I'm just going to bring my foot up here. So, our heel is a narrower spot than our toe base. So, when you look at our shoes, there we go. I just got confirmation we are back. There was a successful reconnection. I haven't really moved forward in the slides. So again, toe, We want to make sure there's room. You're not too sloppy. You're not too pinchy. And really, it's going to take time for you to wear your shoe and figure out if it's the right size. Now that I know we have a good connection, what type of running shoes are there? There's 3 main classes of running shoe: the everyday, the lightweight, and the trail runner. Now, for most people, the everyday running shoe is going to be perfect. Now, this is a true running shoe, not a cross trainer, not a court shoe, not a basketball shoe, but a true running shoe that the everyday runner is going to be the most durable. It's also going to handle the most variety of terrain, and it's going to last the longest and be the most beneficial. Now, if you're looking into getting into more speed running or actual competition running, that's where the lightweight runner might be more beneficial, but it does not have the durability. And then the final one is the trail runner. And this is for the people that kind of want to branch off running on the road and want to run trails. You need to have actual grips to keep you safe while you're running. Now, it's important before you go to the store to kind of have some lingo. 1, makes you sound smart. 2, inherently they might drop these terms, and I want to make sure that you have a firm understanding. So the stack height. The stack height simply indicates the amount of material between your foot and the ground. So that has a lot of variability and really can create a difference in, do you have a really nice thick stack creating that cushion? Do you have a thinner, almost barefoot stack where you can really feel the ground underneath you? That's also a preference. Then there's the heel toe drop. Most running shoes, most traditionally thought of running shoes, have a pretty significant heel toe drop, meaning there's a lot of heel cushioning, a lot of heel stack to a lesser stack on the toes. But then you also have minimalist shoes where it's completely flat with no difference in stack height between heel and toe. So again, preference, if you want to run where you're going to be heel striking a bunch, you're going to want a thicker stack at your heel. If you're going to be toe running, then it may not be as important. And then the final thing to consider is pronation control. And pronation control, majority of the shoes are neutral, meaning they don't affect your ankle stability. But 20% of them have a significant stability. And I bet some of you are going, what is this pronation you speak of? Well, pronation is simply where your ankle is when your foot hits the ground. Most of us want to be in that green middle ground where it's normal. I will say most of us probably are what we'd call a pronator, where our arches drop out and we have on that red, we have it where our arches drop and our ankle goes in, kind of leaves us a little predisposed to ankle injuries. Or we can be a supinator. Now, supinators are not as common. I personally am a really bad pronator. And it's something that I've recognized, and I've done a lot of foot rehab. And if you go back to our live stream on chronic ankle instability, where we go over short foot exercises, that is how you help correct an overpronating foot and bring it back to a more normal, stable foot, which is really nice. So if you look in the mirror or have someone take a picture while you're just standing normally, you'd be able to see if you're a pronator and need a little extra stability. Again, this is just to help protect your ankle while you're running. Now, before you even start thinking about lacing up the trainers, try to start sneaking in some activity just to help bring about and don't completely shock your body. Because you know what? We've been a little lazy in the McDonald household. So we've actually started sneaking in some 15-minute walks and over lunch, and setting reminders on our phone to at least stand up once an hour. If you stand up and walk, just a simple loop around the house for 5 minutes, you're gonna burn 132,000 kilocalories a day just by taking that 5-minute walk break every hour during a normal 8-hour work day. That's insane. Just changing it up just that little bit can really help change the energy system and get you in a better place. Now, before you branch out and go running, you need to find a place to run. And you need it to be safe. Preference to being scenic simply because it's beautiful but still safe. Traffic free because you don't want to be hit by a car. I'm just saying. They're fast. They're faster than you running. You need to consider some weather conditions. So if it's raining, you might need to have an alternate location that has the ability to keep you dry unless you like to run in the rain, which then you might need 2 pairs of running shoes because you definitely do not want to run a second day with your running shoes wet. And then what times of the day? Because there are going to be some times that you can run in one area during, let's say, the middle of the day, but there are going to be other times that you need to run during a different time of the day to keep safe. So that is all things you have to consider when it comes to time of day. All right. Now, I don't know if I've made this clear. You need to be consistent, but don't overdo it. Our ultimate goal with this is to find strength and endurance and ultimately avoid injury. And you need to find a pace that works well with your body. That pace may not be the pace you want it to be. At least for me, I have always tried to run at a pace that I see other people who are runners run, and then I ultimately defeat myself before I get started because I'm not at that pace. I may never be at that pace. I mean, my 62-year-old father runs like a 7-minute mile for like 6 miles. I'd be happy if I could run a 7-minute 1 mile. I'm just going to throw that out there. Right now, I'm not there. I don't know if I could run a mile. That's a good quandary. I will find out if I could actually run a mile. But you need to find a pace that is right for you. And this includes looking at stride length. How long is your actual stride? Because when you're running, you might want to try to lengthen your stride so you don't have to move your legs as much, but you go further. This puts a lot of extra stress on your joints and can ultimately lead to shin splints and pain and injuries. So you might need to shorten your stride and quicken your pace to find the right stride. For me, in high school, they tried to make me a 400-meter runner. It was not pretty. I always tried to lengthen my stride to keep up, and I got severe shin splints. And now I recognize that I was running at a bad stride for the shoes and the material of the track that I was running on. And I probably could have been a decent runner if I had had a coach that actually coached me on how to run a stride for my body type. So figure out the stride length by listening to your body. The next thing you got to do is log your miles. You have to track them. So as you build up, you know if you've gone too far or if you need to push yourself a little bit. It also can help keep you motivated. But keep your goals reasonable. Start slow. Don't get frustrated Everyone is completely different when it comes to running. In fact, some people need to take 7 weeks and just walk. And this is where I'm starting because I'm not a runner. I'm starting with a 7-week walking plan. Now, I'm going to start a little bit further down, like on week 4, because I have a little bit more endurance when it comes to walking. But this is where I'm going to start to help build myself up in preparation for a running plan. Now, where to start running? I'm probably going to use a Couch to 5K program because you know what? They work. They already exist. I don't have to try to research or build my own or magic my own. So find one of the hundreds of programs online that work for you and do that. And then just commit to it and listen to your body. Now, rule of tens, meaning do not increase the length of run you're doing by more than 10%. So if you start off with 10 miles in a week, the next week only go to 11 and then increase from there. But really, it's safer to only increase by 3%. And this isn't as significant in the beginning. It becomes a bigger issue when you start to getting into the long distance. A lot of my patients that are runners that sign up, they get super excited and they sign up for this 10K or a half marathon or God forbid an actual marathon. And then they just start going for it. They get some chronic overuse stuff going on. Foot and shin and just pain. And that's because they increase their activity too much, too fast. So you've got to scale and scale slowly. I'd like to say by the end of the summer, I'd be like a marathon running queen, but I'll probably just be getting to a 5K by September, and that's okay. I don't think people say that enough, that really to start running, you've got to take your time and go very, very slowly. So make sure you scale and scale slowly, and do not run through the pain. It's not worth it. You're gonna be sore, and being sore is okay. What does sore mean? 2 to 3, when you get done running, after you've stretched, the next day you wake up, you're a little sore, that good I worked out sore. Awesome. But you start running and things start to hurt, and I mean hurt, you gotta stop. And once people really get into running and they get that runner's high, telling them to stop running or change the run, never an easy thing. Never an easy thing. But it's really important not to run through the pain. Runners do have a risk of stress fractures that can occur when you don't properly build up and cross-train and modify. So make sure if you're starting to have significant pain, check in with a healthcare provider to make sure that you are safe to continue. And before you start running, warm up. Take 10 minutes and dynamically warm up. This does not mean statically stretch. So do some lunges, side lunges, body weight squats, high knees, butt kickers. Move. Get your body ready to do the activity you're about to do, and that is not statically stretching. Once you're done running, that's a great opportunity to statically stretch and cool down now that your body's completely warm, and that's when you can have some benefit from it. But it's really, you gotta take the time, warm up, appropriately cool down, so that you can run with the least risk of injury. Now, this is great for all able-bodied, normal, not produced a tiny human. If you are a postpartum runner or a postpartum active person, there is a different thing we have to go through. So I have this chart. If you would like it, go ahead and shoot me an email and I would be happy to send it to you just so you can get back to activity as well. I have had some postpartum questions, so I wanted to include this in there for anyone who needs it. Are there any questions from tonight? I know that was thick. That was really thick with information, but you know what? This is an activity that everyone can do. This is an activity that everyone can get into right now. Granted, if your shoes are really, really old, be careful. Looking at those trainers that you've had for 6 years, those are not the trainers you want to start to run on. You probably need some new shoes. And as you're training, understand that your sneakers do have a set amount of mileage similar to an oil change in your car. If you're going to start running, you're going to be buying sneakers more often than you'd probably care for. So just keep that in mind. So if you have any questions, go ahead, type them below. If you come up with a question later on, you can ask here, just hashtag replay, or you can message the clinic. Happy to get back with you. Next week, we will be going over how to get into swimming. Yes. I'd much rather swim than run, but swimming has its limitations because you have to have access to a place to swim. But next week we'll be going over swimming and how it can benefit you. So if running is too hard on your joints, tune in next week to hear how to start swimming, how to get into it, because there are some of you that probably are thinking about doing something crazy like a triathlon. And that involves the running, the cycling, and the swimming. And we have our special guest. Ooh, I see we have a question or a comment. I've tried running shoes that have a big heel and toe curve and the ones that don't, which is better for knees. Really doesn't matter. In all honesty, the shoes that have been shown in the research to be better for knees are the zero shoes that have no heel and have no height to the stack. Those are going to be your best ones for your knee pain because they transfer all of it into your feet. So research shows the best shoe for knees is going to be the zero shoes, but those might not be the best for you. So you've got to take that into consideration when trying them out. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'm going to let you go. It is time for our family's weekly walk. Anything better for hips? Yes, stretch. Stretch your hips when you're done running. And watch the camber of the road. That's when you can really get some hip issues because one hip is perpetually having to hike more than the other. So try running on a actual running path that's completely flat versus on a road that has that curve. When running, my low back starts to hurt. Why? So this is a complicated question when it comes to why your back can start hurting when it's running. My first question is always, how far have you ran before the back starts to hurt? How old are your shoes? What surface are you running on? Some of the reasons why our back hurts have to do with the muscles called the hip flexors. And hip flexors, one of the biggest ones is the psoas muscle. And this naughty little booger actually attaches to our lumbar spine. So it attaches in our back, crosses over the front of our hips, and actually helps pull our hips forward. Now, what sucks is when we sit all day at work, those muscles get really short and really, really tight. Then we go run, and they need to allow our pelvis to move effectively. Now, after sitting all day, sometimes because they're so short, we tooch our booty. So we stick our booty out and run that way. And that puts a lot of stress on our low back. So we have to remember to put our pelvis into a more neutral position, which can be done using cat-cow. So within the yoga realm, let's see if I can do this. So in the yoga realm, getting into the cat, getting into the cow, and really kind of working through those movements to find where our pelvis is most neutral. I know I have a tendency to kind of stick my bum out when I stand for long periods of time, and that can make my back so angry. So angry. So it's important to lunge, side lunge, squat, and high knees, butt kickers to really help kind of get things opened up before you run. Track when the pain starts. Figure out what mile. If your back hurts the minute you start running, you might need to go into a healthcare provider and get assessed, to be honest, and be adjusted. If I'm a little biased toward the chiropractic realm. And if not, you just gotta, if it's like mile 2, mile 3 in, then it might be the surface you're running on. If it's at the end of the run when you're done, then you're just not cooling down well enough. Does that kind of answer your question, Karen? I threw a lot of information out there. Because I know a lot of people will stretch the back and like twist, but they miss stretching the hip flexors. And those can be a real booger to kind of get into. Any other questions that anyone have? Good. I'm glad you don't hurt. The goal is not to hurt you after an adjustment. The goal is to help get you moving. So if you get adjusted and then don't have pain after running, it could be that you're just due to be seen. I know that it's been hard to get into a lot of providers recently with the pandemic going on. So do your best to get in, and it may be that combined with the adjusting, you need some low back stability exercises and some core work, and that would settle out everything that you need to get back into running. Our core, and I'm gonna core beyond abdominal muscles. So when I say core, I'm talking your quads, your hamstrings, your adductors, your abductors, your glutes, your abdominals, your back muscles, your diaphragm. All of those, and that's a lot of muscles, all of those have to be engaged effectively to help support you while you're running. So if one of those is over or underactive, that can also cause pain. Pain while running sucks. So then, yep, Karen, I'm going to say you need to go see your chiro. Any other questions from anyone? All right. I'm not seeing anything come through right now. I want to thank everyone for coming. Next week is part 3, Swimming for Health. I look forward to seeing you again Tuesday at 6:30 Central. Again, we will see you there. And remember, here at Mobility, Agility, Chiropractic Performance, we are always trying to get you better faster, keep you better longer, because no one has time to be sidelined. Have a good evening. Go out for a walk right now. It is sunny and beautiful here in Minnesota, and enjoy that weather and start getting active. Don't wait till tomorrow. Start now. Have a good night. To keep up to date with future content, please click subscribe. Additional information is found in the description of this video.
All information, content, material of this video is for information purposes only and are not intended to serve as a substitute for the consultation, diagnosis, and/or medical treatment of a qualified physician or healthcare provider.